Hey, Playman here. Gonna do a quick video. I finally finished the third book in this series. What I'm calling it, I guess it's called His Dark Materials. I call it the Golden Compass series because that's the first book. I don't know. It's very fascinating because in a weird way, the book is like religious without being religious. It's for kids, but also kind of not for kids. Like it is for kids in the sense of like 12, 13, 14-year-olds, I think would get a certain amount out of it. I never read it. I'm really looking forward to watching this series, which is kind of why I got into it. I had a friend who suggested it to me, and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll read the books, because that's what I do. It's nice to finish it. And in a weird way, I kind of love that it's over now, and I can move on to other stuff. Not that I haven't read other stuff and whatever, but like, there was something about it that was interesting where I felt like the first and the second book were almost kind of like, you did the first book and then you get started on the second, and it almost feels like a repeat of the first book, but introducing a new character, which is unfair because there was a lot of development in other things. And this third book wasn't quite that. Like, you already know these people, so you're continuing on with the story, and there was more involved in it and yada yada yada. So effectively, this is me just talking about the whole thing. I think it's a fascinating world that this author built, Philip Pullman. And I listened to the audiobook, and interestingly enough, he did the audio on the narration of the audiobook, and it's like a full cast, which in my opinion is kind of the best way to do an audiobook. Is you can have one individual do everything and do accents, and that is good, especially if you get a good actor who can do that. But there's something about having different actors kind of do the main parts that really I like, and really illustrates the amount of effort and money that the producers of the project, of the book in this case, were willing to invest in the project, because it's not cheap to do that. It's not like super duper expensive, but it's not cheap in comparison. Like, hiring one person to do it is a lot cheaper than hiring 8-10 people to do the same book. So aside from that, simply put, I like the story. I think it's a good story. I thought it was well done. Is it something that's super amazing that I'm going to remember forever and ever and ever? No, not particularly. I thought that there was some really good points to it. And to me, that's what communicated, and something that made me excited to like have my son, read it with my son and talk about those particular points. So one of them is, interestingly enough, it comes across as if it's a battle between religion and freedom. This like religious doctrine, do this or else, or else you're going to be sent to hell and damnation and that type of thing. And then the other one is kind of like this idea of like freedom. But interestingly enough, towards the end, it seemed like it wasn't really freedom. It's kind of just like religious freedom. And instead of this doctrine of you have to believe this and the creator and God and and things are preordained, it is kind of this other thing. And in a weird way, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it seemed like the author didn't necessarily dictate, good and bad. Well, the religious group was definitively bad, but it didn't really say that this other entity, this freedom entity, this republic entity was good. Just that it was exponentially better than this, because then you have the idea of choice, which I can get behind. But that manifests itself because one of the key people is our female, Lyra Silvertongue, Belalacqua, yeah. Her parents are not necessarily good people, and one of them ends up being the leader of the whole thing. Annoyingly and lovingly, I saw the Golden Compass movie or whatever, I know about it, so I thought of her dad always the whole time being a younger Daniel Craig, and that's what it's settled. So, which is in a way good casting. Like if the casting continues in your head 10 years later, you did good. And I'm looking forward to watching the show on Max, and I did even think of like the other actor who plays him. I can't blank. That guy. God, I know the actor too. Anyways, so in general, good casting, but that's neither here nor there. So you have his character is not necessarily a good guy. He actually, in many ways, he kind of comes across as cold and not necessarily manipulative, but just like aloof of small affairs. Almost like a general would be, but in a bad way. Like you want a general to kind of focus on the overall picture and not necessarily worry about the minutia of each individual lives lost. But you do want them to be compassionate to the cost of the thing. Otherwise, they're so disconnected, then it doesn't really matter, and they kind of lose their humanity. So, in a weird way, I felt like he was disconnected, and I felt like that was intentional. But yeah, it was such an interesting thing. It was kind of like religion, anti-religion, but also not that. But effectively, it was kind of freedom, like no choice, total doctrine. You have to obey because we say to obey. And on the other hand, it was like freedom. And if you think about it, that is kind of the nuts and bolts of what fundamentally made America, which is this concept of, oh, we can stay in Europe and we have to follow these dictates, or we can go over here and risk death and disease and famine and all these other things and total failure. But we can decide for ourselves how we want to live. And in a weird way, that's kind of what this movie is. It's like a very elaborate maze and story and travel to get there. But it's also very beautiful. And what I think is great about the kid part, what I think makes it something that you should have your child read, or you should frankly read with your child, is the two main characters, the guy and the girl, are both really good human beings. And they're different. And they complement each other really, really well. And it works. So for that alone, whether you have a son or a daughter, I think you want your son or your daughter to glean some of that characteristic traits from these two kids, because they're such good characters and good role models for your kid. And that's kind of my 2 cents. Is like that's what you should do. Like frankly, that in my opinion is the point of good novels, good books, good stories, is to learn from, glean from that story, and to be a better person because of it. And I don't know if I'm going to be a better person because of it. I feel strongly about these two main characters, Will and Lyra, but I it makes me want to be a better person. But in a weird way, because I'm significantly older than them, 30 years older or whatever, I'm like, I'm kind of past that point. So for me, it's a different thing. But I will say, I do resonate with that idea of like reading characters and wanting to be like them. And I feel like in a way that's kind of what not Lord of the Rings, well that too, but what Harry Potter does for young kids. Like they read it and they're like, I want to be like Harry or Ron or Hermione or Cedric or whatever. So in short, I highly suggest reading this series. As an adult, if I'm honest, I felt like it was a bit wasted on me. But I'm also, because I'm also reading the Aslan, C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. And I finished the first like small book, and then The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In a weird way, similar to that, the point of me doing this is for my kid, so that I can kind of develop a series of books and whatnot that I would like to read and consume with him. And even if I don't have the time, because kids tend to have way more time because they don't have to work jobs and stuff, I at least know and be like, oh, this is a good book that you should read And I think that's valuable. I think it's very, very, very valuable. So, simply put, very good. I am going to watch the show, and I'm probably going to watch all 3 seasons. I might do a season 1, 2, and 3. I don't know. Probably. More content. Anyhow, I have not forgotten about you guys. I'm sorry. The start of the year has been weird. Plus, I have a baby shower coming up very soon. And then I have stuff to do around the house. And then on top of that, I got a baby coming. So it's been a little weird. Priorities are weird. I love you guys. And I will continue making videos. It's just I haven't been very good about doing it just so. But I am still reading books. I have another video to do, which I'll probably do tomorrow. I finished a different book. I'm going to start another book. So I'm a little behind. It isn't lack of love. It's just I'm working on it. All right. That's it for now. Plaidman out. Have a good day. And yay. Good times. Yay, America. Love you all. Bye-bye.